Welcome back to Just Chattin'. And these are the videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So, let me start with, it is currently 77 degrees here. I know, gorgeous weather for March, right? For our friends in the UK, that's 25 Celsius. So I have windows open. And let me apologize in advance for whatever ambient traffic noises sort of filter into the video. But yeah, it's a glorious day. We have a cat wandering around. I don't know if we're going to be seeing him. Just, what can I say? He's a cat. He comes and goes as he pleases. So let's just start with, we are on the run up to St. Patrick's Day. So I have one of my favorite Queen scarves. I know, what in the world does this have to do with St. Patrick's Day? We got crowns, we got corgis, but we don't have shamrocks. Well, this was a gift from Colleen Harrigan Staver. So I guess that's about as Irish as these things get. I do, in fact, have a St. Patrick's Day scarf that I'm saving for Sunday. But this is just to get into the wonderful sunny spring spirit of things. So when we come back, we are going to get into the topic of this video. So, crucifying Catherine. I imagine a lot of you are wondering what that has to do with Nutmeg and the sock puppet, because I suppose in the broadest sense of the word, that's what these videos are about. But if you Google Meghan right now, just go on Google, plug in Meghan as your search term, and all you're going to see is article after article after article about Catherine and the photoshopped picture. So I thought, since everybody's heard of the pictures and everybody has seen what is alleged to be the photoshopping, we should probably talk about this and bring a little common sense to bear. So we're going to start with my very favorite example of the photoshopping. And that's little Louis's hand in a weird position. Now, Louis is about to be 6, so he's 5, but he'll be 6 in a couple of weeks. We're talking about a 6-year-old child. I, as you know, am going to be 70 this year. Watch. There is what Louis did. Okay, now that's my right hand here. I can do it with my left as well. There, get it right into the camera. There you go. Why? Because I used to do that when I was 6. When I was 6 years old and I had flexible little 6-year-old fingers, I could do the most amazing things with them. Why? Because I woke up one morning and said, look at these toys, and started playing with them. This is what kids do. And if I could do it, and trust me, it's not like I had to practice, because I did all my practicing when I was 6. If I could just do that, of course, a 6-year-old child can do that. And as I say, the reason I can do it is I did it all the time when I was 6. All little kids do things like this. And anyone who says, oh, look, this proves the picture was altered, has never spent very much time around little kids. So that's just my favorite, because it was so absurd. One of the things that I will grant, and keep in mind, Catherine issued an apology saying that she had manipulated the photo. So we know there's photo manipulation. But the big one, as far as I could tell, was an alteration to Charlotte's hand, her sweater. And here's a close-up of it. You can see it. Yes, the photograph was indeed manipulated. That is obvious. Other things like, gee, Catherine was not wearing her wedding or engagement ring. Well, those of you who are my age, I'm sure, will remember, because this was huge. It was all over the papers when it happened. Back in the 1980s, when Diana was in the habit of visiting hospital wards, particularly with people with AIDS, and that it is not as serious a medical condition today as it was in the 80s, when they just had not come up with effective treatments. And she was asked to remove her engagement ring when she was in the hospital. And as I say, you go in for a visit and they just said, sorry, too many facets, too many prongs, too many nooks and crannies that could harbor bacteria and germs. She was asked to remove it. Front page news back then. Well, interestingly enough, that very same engagement ring is now Catherine's engagement ring. So why would it surprise anyone that a woman recovering from surgery might be advised not to be wearing anything that can harbor diseases and germs? Diana was simply visiting hospital wards. Catherine, on the other hand, is recovering from surgery. So I think that one is a no-brainer. That's not just where we pull our common sense into the mix, but we pull back our known history of that particular ring having been targeted by doctors and hospital personnel as potentially dangerous. So come on. That one, no. That is a non-issue. One of the other big ones is the allegation that the picture of Catherine was actually taken from a Vogue magazine cover and then superimposed on this photograph. And again, we're going to go back to common sense. Anyone who had the skill to make a photo manipulation of that sort would certainly have the skill to have smoothed out Charlotte's sweater cuff. So please, let's be consistent. Either it was an amateurish editing job, which is what Catherine alleges, or it was some wild, top-level photo manipulation by a pro capable of pulling a magazine photo and superimposing it on a selfie from a cell phone. So, no. You can't have it both ways. And as I say, as far as I am concerned, the only legitimate error in the photo involved Charlotte's sweater. Anything else? No. It was probably either a bit of blurriness in the case of Catherine's right hand, which does seem to be a little blurry. It certainly wasn't alien fingers on Louis's hands or somebody photoshopping out his fingers. Why would anyone do that? I mean, I'm really guessing that's the big question. Why would anyone do that? So I think what we need to do is pull back and say, yeah, the photo was edited. Catherine said the photo was edited. Was this done to deceive the public? Well, no. That's just craziness. We can easily identify all of the people in the photograph. We know who took the photograph. We know when it was taken. Where is the deception? The fact is, this is the sort of thing that everybody does with their own selfies every day of the week, and no one thinks it's a big deal. Nutmeg and the sock puppet have taken it to the next level, and we know this. We know they are putting out photos that have been photoshopped, but apparently the Sussex squad isn't aware of that because they seem to be the people demanding Catherine's blood for this, which is just, it's insane. It is an overreaction, and I've I have my own theory on why this is taking place. And that is, we just don't see Catherine messing up all that often. We do not. Catherine is simply practically perfect in every way.
As I expected, Mary Poppins practically perfect in every way.
So when you have someone who is that perfect, that idolized, there are always going to be people who really just feel the need to stick a pin in that bubble. It doesn't necessarily mean they hate Catherine. Sometimes they simply hate the concept of perfection. They just want to say, oh, look, she's human. I think for the most part that we're seeing something beyond that, especially when we see these sources close to Harry and Meghan, that's how they are defined, saying they would never do this. Really? Really? Well, that's crap, because not only would they, but they have done this in the past. So, yeah, Harry really does have a head full of hair, doesn't he? Nutmeg really does have this flawless complexion, doesn't she? Come on. This is just our reality in the 21st century. We see this all the time. There are people, particularly in Asia, where this photo manipulation is very popular. There are people who have made careers out of photoshopping themselves, men into women, small, short people into long people with 6-foot legs. It's a thing there. And some of it is just so absurd that we know it's not reality. What I found very entertaining about this whole tempest in a teapot was that someone actually asked the United States presidential press secretary about this. And the press secretary said, no, we don't do that. So, yeah, well, we already know that. We've seen some of the pictures of Donald Trump and Joe Biden that certainly prove nobody is trying to make these guys look better. But it does bring up the whole idea of, is Catherine in the category of head of state rather than Hollywood celebrity? Because we know the Hollywood celebrities Photoshop their pictures all the time. So if she were, what do we have to draw on from this? So I want to show you a picture of Queen Mary. Now, this, in my opinion, as a woman, this is a horrific picture. Absolutely horrific. But look at the waistline. Now, we know that Queen Mary's photos were altered. They were airbrushed because that's how they did it in those days. They would literally paint right onto the negative to create a different waistline. In this case, it was that insane wasp waist that was very popular in her era. We also saw this on the late Queen Mum, when we have pictures like this of her. And we all know that she was a woman of some physical girth, and it never seemed to really trouble her that much. She seemed to be very accepting of what her body looked like. Good for her for that. But at least in this one picture, and I had a hard time finding pictures of her that were airbrushed, but here you go. I would say this is probably a good contender. Did someone go in and cinch in her waist a bit? Yes, clearly that is not what she looked like at this point in her life when she was, goodness, at this point in her life, she was probably around 40. So, did she still have the figure of an 18-year-old after two children and being 40? No. But someone apparently thought this would be a better image of the Queen, and here you go. This has been done practically forever. Let me give you another one. This is Anne of Cleves. This is the Holbein portrait, and it would have been painted around 1540. And Henry VIII, as I'm sure we all know, was very critical of Holbein, saying that he had painted Anne to make her appear more attractive than she actually was. I don't think this was the first instance of photoshopping ever, but I certainly think when we have an instance of manipulation of a portrait, what we're looking at is something close to 500 years old. This is not new. This is not something that Catherine invented. And even if she is in that sort of head of state category where everybody seems to believe honesty trumps aesthetics, well, she's hardly the first person in the royal family to alter a photograph or a portrait to try to make it look a little better. So, no, where's the story here? There isn't one. Unless, of course, you want to look at the story of the story. Why are people so crazy about this issue? Why is it such a big deal? Now, I wanted to see a picture of Catherine come out. I wanted the family to issue a photograph because my first thought, naively as it turns out, is if a photograph came out, it might quell people's fears about what was going on with Catherine and her recovery. Because, of course, people were scared, people were concerned. And, when you get people scared enough, they start to believe all kinds of nonsense. But obviously, I did not want to see a photoshopped picture come out. But given the fact that it seems very clear to me that whatever photoshopping took place had nothing to do with the photographic presentation of Catherine and her family, just a few tweaks here and there. What's been altered? A sweater sleeve? Is that the end of the world? No. So, I'm glad the photo came out. I hope that the people who had a sincere interest in Catherine's welfare were calmed by the photograph, that their fears were assuaged a bit by seeing that Catherine is fine, she's in the bosom of her family, she has not been kidnapped by aliens or replaced with a Stepford wife doll. As for the rest, well, all I can say is I actually believe that nothing that came out of Kensington Palace dealing with Catherine and her family and what's going on in her recovery would have satisfied them. I think even if they didn't have such a conspicuous example of photo manipulation, they probably would have found one on their own, because things like, Louis's fingers have been called photo manipulation, and as you can see, it most certainly is not. So, were they going to be satisfied? No, no. And we can just shrug our shoulders and blow that one off. Nothing would have quieted this group down. And remember, most of this is coming from the pro-Sussex camp, the people who have said already the most dreadful things about Catherine and even about the little children, that we have every right to say we are ignoring anything that comes out of their mouths. And of course, when it's coupled with such blatantly false and outrageous claims like Harry and Meghan would never do this, when in fact, as I said, not only would they do it all the time. This is just normal for them. And they go beyond that. And we all know that. They go beyond the photoshopping. They set up photos from the get-go. They call in the press. They pose for allegedly candid photographs. And that's where a higher level of deceit comes in. Certainly a much higher level than altering a sweater sleeve. So, what is my final take on this? Well, 1, tempest in a teapot. 2, bored people with nothing better to do than complain. 3, people who simply resent the fact that Catherine is so very, very good at her job, that when they find one little error that in the overall scheme of things is so small it's not even worth mentioning, they must leap upon this as if she is just murdering orphans by the roadside, stacking them up like cordwood. That is craziness. That is when things have gotten well out of hand. Now, obviously, Nutmeg and the sock puppet really need to be stepping up and saying, whoa, stop. But they're not going to, because the sources close to Harry and Meghan, which is how they are all defined, are certainly Harry and Meghan themselves. So, no, are they going to silence themselves? Well, we all know they're never going to do that. They're never going to shut up. They're never going to take responsibility for what they are doing. So, secondary to that, given the fact that I know they're not going to try to quiet their raging mob with pitchforks and axes, what I do hope will take place as a result of this is the British royal family will realize how much chaos these two can spread. If they can spread this level of chaos over one little photograph, imagine what they will do if they are ever allowed back into the royal fold. So, maybe there is some good that will come out of this. I apologize for this. I need to get my hair cut, so it's all over the place. So my apologies for that. Anyway, that is what I have for you today. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. And in support of Catherine and her right to manipulate selfies if she wants to, we're going to take a look at the slideshow of Catherine as a child. So, I will see you all over the weekend for the Thrifting and Project videos, and we will be back again Sunday evening. So, in the meanwhile, have a terrific day. Oh, and cross your fingers, because here you go, solidarity with Louis.